Hello, everyone. This is Jessica Gonzalez, Project Associate for the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center Network Coordinating Office. Thank you so much for being here today. We are going to talk about mental health promotion, Tier 1. And if you haven't already, please click on the link in the chat box to sign in, and so we can send you materials for this session and all upcoming sessions. Before we get started today, we're going to start with some announcements. Our office wanted to share with everyone that we do have the National School Mental Health Curriculum currently being finalized and will be publicly available on the MHTTC website in June. So just to give a little bit of context about the curriculum for those of you who are joining us for the very first time today, we did kick off this learning collaborative at our in-person learning session in Maryland back in March. And those who were there received a draft version of the National School Mental Health Curriculum that was developed by the National Center for School Mental Health in partnership with the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center Network Coordinating Office. So this curriculum is focused on the core components of comprehensive school mental health and includes a trainer and participant manual, slide decks, guidance, and tools to advance the implementation of school mental health services. And we want everyone to know that we will have this curriculum posted and publicly available on the MHTTC website in June. So if you have any questions about this, please add them to the chat box, or you can email me directly. I will add my contact information later on today. We also want to talk about the Learning Collaborative materials. So we want to make sure that everyone that is part of the Learning Collaborative and everyone that's joining us for these virtual learning sessions has access to all of the materials that we share. So we do have 2 folders that we've shared with all Learning Collaborative participants. You can see the links on the screen, but I will also add the links to the chat box during this virtual learning session. We have a box folder, and we also have a Google folder. So you have the option of saving one or the other, whichever one you are able to access. And in these folders, you will find several materials. We have the in-person learning session materials from our in-person session in March, and this includes the National School Mental Health Curriculum. We have the agenda and the participant list for that learning session. And then we also have a folder for each one of the virtual learning sessions. And so each folder will include a recording of the presentation, the slide deck, all of the resources that are referenced in the presentation by the National Center for School Mental Health, and a list of resources that are recommended by participants during the learning session. And we just want to remind everyone that our next virtual learning session is Thursday, June 6th. Our topic for that session will be early intervention and treatment for tiers 2 and 3. And we really want to ask that anyone who is willing to share any success or challenges that you've had in this area, that you please reach out to us. Let us know in the chat box if you're willing to present on our next learning session, and we will contact you. We have been getting feedback for these virtual learning sessions, and a lot of you have said that you have found it very helpful to hear from others about their efforts in this work. And so we really want to continue to have guest speakers come in and talk about your efforts in the field. So again, I will add my contact information into the chat box today, and you all can reach out to me if you are interested in presenting in June. Now I will go ahead and hand it over to Chris from the National Center for School Mental Health.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chris Scardamelia, and I'm with the National Center for School Mental Health. And today we're going to talk about Tier 1 services and supports. The slide that you have in front of you now are some examples of what would be a Tier 1 service. But today we want to focus mostly on school climate and social-emotional learning. We're going to first talk about school climate. And we have a definition here just to make sure that we're all on the same page as we're thinking about school climate. Things that I would highlight here in this definition are, number one, that a positive school climate is the product of a school's attention to fostering climate. Positive school climates are something that are actively created and don't just passively exist. In addition, school climate has many different facets. A lot of times we think of just how people are feeling for the day, but it's important that we're looking at all of the various dimensions of school climate. We're going to hear a little later on today from a group that developed the Department of Education School Climate Survey, and they'll be talking a bit more about all of various aspects of school climate. But why would we want to assess school climate? We know that positive school climate can improve attendance, student achievement, graduation rates, and promotion rates. And then conversely, a negative school climate can do harm to students, it could raise liability issues, and it creates opportunities for bullying, other forms of violence, and other forms of disruption in the school. So when you think about assessing school climate, you looked at some best practices. One of the most important things is plan ahead of time the type of data that you want to collect, how it's going to be stored, how it's going to be analyzed, and to ensure that you're assessing multiple dimensions of school climate. It's important to get information from a variety of groups and stakeholders. Often we think of school climate surveys as either going to just students or just teachers, but we want to include as many informants as we can, including parents or non-instructional staff on the campuses. Anonymous input is really an important aspect of school climate feedback. Teachers and other personnel need to feel comfortable that they can give whatever feedback they feel is necessary or important and not worry about how that might reflect on their job performance. We also had some interesting information from the Research Alliance for New York City Schools. They did a study looking specifically at what aspects affect teacher turnover and student achievement. And they found that teacher turnover is associated with school leadership, academic expectations, teacher relationships, and school safety. These are all core components of school climate. And then student achievement was directly associated with academic expectations and school safety. So in looking at this, we can see that addressing school climate really addresses a wide variety of issues on a school campus or within a district. So here you see some best practices for improving your school climate. If you decide that that is a direction, or the district that you're working with decides that that is a direction they need to go. And some of the recommendations are to have a core school climate planning committee, to have a group that's dedicated to looking at this issue and can do some more long-term and comprehensive examination of what's needed. You want to try to align your efforts for school improvement with other efforts going on in the district, and integrate and embed these improvement methods as much as possible so that school climate, improvement of school climate isn't something extra we're doing, but it's part of everything that we do. So today we are lucky to have Anne from AIR come and talk about the EDS-CLS. It is the school climate survey that was developed by the Department of Education and is in wide use. And Anne is going to tell us more about the tool and how it's used.
Oh, hi, my name is Anne Diffenderfer. I am I work on the help desk for the U.S. Department of Education School Climate Surveys. I manage the help desk. So I'm going to present those surveys to you today. In order to facilitate school climate measurements, the U.S. Department of Education developed high quality and adaptable Department of Education school climate surveys. And with those surveys, they developed an associated web-based platform that you can use to actually administer the surveys online. All of this, the surveys and the platform, can be downloaded free of charge, and they provide user-friendly school climate reports back to users after the data has been collected. The surveys can be administered at the state, district, or school level, and there are 4 different respondent groups for the surveys. There's a survey for students in grades 5 through 12, a survey for instructional staff, a survey for non-instructional staff, including principals, and a survey for parents. So as you can see, these 3 domains are what the survey is based on. There are items that measure engagement, safety, and environment. And within those 3 domains, it measures these various topic areas, such as cultural and linguistic competence, relationships, school participation, physical safety, etc. So later in the presentation, we will refer back to these domains and topic areas when we discuss the reporting. This is an image of what the dashboard looks like for the web-based platform that you use to administer the surveys. And I'm just going to walk you through all of the functionality that's available here. In the upper left-hand corner is the education agency information. So this is where you would go to set up the surveys at either the state, district, or school level. And you just enter contact information for that agency. And then the platform knows which schools to load based on whether you're setting it up for the state agency or for a district. And then just to the right of that is the data collection, where you can create or edit the different data collections for the different respondent groups. So you would go there to open your student, instructional staff, parent surveys, etc. And then just below these two, this is where the platform generates the usernames. Their anonymous usernames are randomly generated for each of the surveys. And this is where you would go to do that. So you select the schools that are participating and you can generate the appropriate number of usernames for each school. You can export those and disseminate them manually, or you can disseminate them via email. Then at the bottom, this is the reporting and results section. So just to the left there, under the reports, is where you would go to view your real-time survey status reports, so you can see how many usernames have completed the survey and how many still need to complete the survey. And then this is where you also go to generate and export item frequency reports and scale score reports. And then to the right of that is the survey results. This is where you go to export all of the raw data for the survey, and you can import data into the survey from other platforms if you're using more than one. This is an example of the item level report, and it produces percentages and means. In the platform itself, you can see a graph of the results for each survey item, but these graphs are not, you can't export them from the platform at this time. The only thing that is able to be exported is the data itself. But these frequencies are available, or these item level percentages are available for every single survey item on all of the surveys. And then the next report is, this is an example of the scale score report. And there are scores available for each domain, the engagement, safety, and environment, as well as all of the subtopics that fall within those three domains. And when you get the scores out of the survey results, the way that they're presented is against these benchmarks, the least favorable, favorable, and most favorable. And these benchmarks were developed with data that was provided from schools nationally. And there's a whole report on our website that explains how the benchmarks were created. But this is a good way for schools to judge how they're doing in comparison to others. So we have a number of resources available that goes along with this platform. Our EdSCLS website houses the platform user guide, which gives all the technical documentation and information for installing the platform and administering the surveys. It also provides frequently asked questions, a list of the survey items for each of the 4 surveys, code books for each of the 4 surveys, and contact information for the help desk. We also have a lot of data interpretation resources available on our website, specifically the School Climate Improvement Resources Package, which is a really comprehensive set of materials that enable people to take the data that they get from their school climate survey and apply it in a way that helps them improve their school climate. And then our help desk is available Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 Eastern. And you can contact us through email or phone, and we respond within 24 hours. So our staff is available there. And then finally, this was a very high level overview, and there's a lot more detail that goes into it. So if you have questions or want any additional information, you can follow up with myself or Pia, and this is our contact information.
Thank you so much. We do have a couple minutes if people have questions. You can type your message into the chat box, or type your question into the chat box rather. Okay. And we will take those if and as they come up. So we're going to switch now to social emotional learning. And again, we just want to start with that definition to make sure we're all on the same page as far as what it is. And it's, you know, the process through which children and adults, we have to remember adults also, just manage your emotions, set goals, have positive relationships, meaningful relationships, and make responsible decisions moving forward. When we talk about social emotional learning, CASEL is usually what comes to mind. They've done a lot of work developing the various domains of social emotional learning and breaking it out into some manageable parts. There are 5 core competencies that we look at: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. We do see with an increase in social emotional learning or competencies within a school, increases in academic achievement, pro-social behavior, social emotional skills, positive self-images, along with decreases in conduct problems, general levels of emotional distress, and substance use. Yeah. So we have 3 presenters in this area, so I do want to give a lot of time to them and make sure we cover this fully. So this is a very brief overview about social emotional learning. There are a lot of different curriculums out there. CASEL has examined and validated many of them. The CASEL website, which I believe is just casel.org, has a lot of great information if you're looking for a particular curriculum, ones that they would suggest, ones that they've looked at. So our first presenter in this area is Dr. Nancy Turner. She is the Director of Exceptional Student Services for Rock Hill Schools in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Hi, Dr. Turner. Are you on now?
Just so you know, we're unable to hear you, so you may need to unmute yourself at the top of your screen if you are connected through Zoom. You may have to go to the top of your screen and there should be an option for unmuting your line.
There's one down at the bottom.
We can hear someone now.
Okay, but yeah, so I guess you just need to speak a little bit louder.
Hello, is that you?
Hold on. Can you hear me now?
Very slightly, so, but yes, we can hear you.
All right. All right, so let me start talking. Can you hear me all right now?
Not very well.
That's good. All right. All right. Hold on, we may need to switch to the phone.
Okay, so I think what we'll do, Nancy, while you're figuring out, maybe perhaps calling back in on the phone, is we may go to our second example and then route back to you. And that way you'll have an opportunity to connect through the phone.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Sure.
great. So our second presenter today is Dr. Pam Emery from the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here with everyone. And I just wanted to share that I'm excited to be a part of the discussion today and really proud to share the things that Pennsylvania has been working on for about 4 years. I do want to say that we have collaborated with Harvard University, the National Governors Association, and we are a member of CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning's Collaborating States Initiative. We're one of 29 states that meets at least twice annually in Chicago to share our work in the area of social emotional learning. So what you're going to see, you may be a little confused. What you're going to see on your screen is something that says Pennsylvania Career Ready Skills Continuum. And this is a continuum of social emotional learning skills that works from grades pre-K through 12 The bands are pre-K and K, grades 1 through 5, grades 6 through 8, and 9 through 12. And I did send a copy of that continuum so that you all can have that as a resource. What Pennsylvania has done, because we are working so heavily in the area of career readiness, is we have worked to align our social emotional learning skills, which we are calling career ready skills, to employability skills. So what we have done is early on in our project, we decided that we would align our skills to those skills that employers say they need, those employability, or they've been also called 21st century skills or soft skills. And we used the National Network of Business and Industries list of employability skills and aligned our skills to those. So when you look at our continuum, which you will all have, we have 3 main buckets. We do not have 5 like Castle. So we combined self-awareness and self-management, establishing and maintaining relationships, and then social problem-solving skills. So we have 3. We elected to look at them through the lens of 3 main buckets. In those domains or main buckets, you will see underneath the aligned employability skills. And so we know that if we're working in those skills from pre-K through grades 9 through 12, that when students are graduating and at 12th grade, that they will possess those employability skills that our employers nationally and in the state of Pennsylvania are telling us they cannot train new employees to do, to learn how to communicate, learn how to collaborate, learn how to be adaptable, be empathetic towards others, etc. Be able to accept constructive criticism, take responsibility for their work and pride for their work, etc. So we've developed a continuum, and then we created tools. The tools that we have created are our Pennsylvania Career Ready Skills Introductory Document. And in that document, that's where the research lives. We also did a lot of aligning. We aligned to all of the academic standards. We aligned our social emotional learning career ready skills to our academic standards. We also looked at our math, science, and technology education practices, which are at the beginning of the standards. And we also aligned to the Danielson framework for teaching, because in Pennsylvania, that's how our teachers are measured in their progress. Thank you. We also did a toolkit that is the how-to. So in the toolkit are tools for LEAs to utilize for planning and implementation of social emotional learning within a school and within a school environment. We also have an assessment that teachers can take to social emotional learning where they currently are. That's an online assessment from the American Institutes of Research that they can save and then go back and take a look at after they've worked in the area a while to see their growth. We've also worked to share how-tos. So we have the social emotional learning skill. We have performance indicators, or what those skills look like when students are able to do those skills. We also have behaviors that adults can do to work with kids within that particular skill, and then we have teaching practices. We are also developing our first professional development course. It's called an Act 48 course, which is how Pennsylvania teachers get their professional development credits in Pennsylvania. We also have a certificate endorsement in the area of social emotional learning and mental health. which means that if someone would like to take university courses, they can receive an endorsement on their professional certificate in the area of social emotional learning and mental health. Okay, next slide, please. Our successes were to develop that continuum, to complete our guidance or introductory document in the toolkit, which has just been approved yesterday, and also the certificate endorsement. We're one state that has that certificate endorsement, and then to secure the funding for our online educator courses. Also, I think a success is being able to partner with CASEL and other states. I didn't list it, but they have been phenomenal in supporting us and providing us with resources and recommendations as we've gone along. Next slide, please. So here's my advice for anyone looking to, in a state or an entity, any kind of professional entity that's looking to grow social emotional learning. First thing you need to do is garner some support. So at the state level, in the Department of Ed, we needed to have from our directors and those that are watching all of the initiatives, we needed support and able to go forward from them. Build a great core team. I have folks from the Department of Labor and Industry. I have folks from different departments, early childhood development, career and technical education, oh my goodness, universities. We've had parents. We've had many different folks that we've worked with on that core team, special educators, etc. Make sure that you have clear goals, and they may change as you go along, but establish some clear goals. And then identify those folks at the state and local level that will be vested in the work that you are doing. And then we had an awful lot of opportunities for feedback. We had folks that we pulled together face-to-face, and we also did a significant amount of webinars. We worked with mental health agencies. We worked with medical, the medical field. We worked with universities, et cetera, private and public businesses and industry, et cetera, to get feedback on these career-ready skills. So those are my advices to anyone for whatever they're worth. And I want to thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you so much. That is a great information and lots packed into a short period of time. It's very impressive. So we are going to get back to Dr. Turner in just a moment, but we did have a couple of questions that came up. Let's see. One was, where do we find the teacher readiness survey that was mentioned?
So in the American Institute of Research's webpage for great teachers and leaders, in social emotional learning, you can find that resource. You have to scroll down the page to find it under tools, but you can find it. And if you have any problems, or I can send the link if that would be helpful when we're done, and then maybe that can be posted.
Oh, the other, put the link in the chat box, and that will go out to everyone.
That sounds good.
All right. I did want to mention we had another comment, not a question, but the comment was, just that love the employability connection in that they have a similar crosswalk for Washington-specific standards.
Right. Right.
Ah, yes, and then with the link, yes. Phone, audio, okay. All right, so Dr. Turner, do we have you back? Okay, I will, I'm going to give Dr. Turner a call, but we do have a third presenter. Katie, are you on the line?
I am. Can you hear me? Hello?
I do.
Yay, hooray. Can you see me? This is a new technology for me, so hi.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, that is Dr. Turner. So we cannot see you, we see the slides, but we can hear you well this time.
Me, Katie, this is Katie talking right now.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
You have a very similar voice. All right, so from Austin Independent School District, we have Katie O'Neill. She is a social and emotional learning specialist. And the interesting thing about Austin is they have had their services in place for quite some time. So I want to turn it over to Katie to talk about what they have going on.
Well, hi everybody. It's really a privilege to be here, and I am just one of 11 social and emotional learning specialists on the Austin team, and I just, for starters, want to say how much I appreciate the fact that AISD really has put a lot of human capital into this important work. And so, I mean, I'm really just like one of, I'm nobody super special. I'm just like one of us, So we've been part of the Castle Collaborating Districts Initiative since 2011. And this, what you see on the slide right now, is the wheel that we have adapted from Castle and made it Austin ISD specific. And this basically serves as, this is our grounding model. We try to do everything, all of our professional learning, all of the intentional social emotional instruction we do in school, we try very hard to ground it from this wheel that we've created with the learner at the center, and as the foundation, this green foundation of safe, inclusive, culturally responsive, academically engaging, and equitable learning environments. This we sort of think of as a weird shape for Maslow's triangle of needs. And the idea is, if we can create school and classroom environments where our students are learning these competencies, then ultimately as they progress through school and through their life, they'll get to the fullest expression of these SEL skills, which is that outer ring. And of course, this is what we hope for all of our students, that academic tenacity and curiosity, that self-identity and agency, and that sense of belonging and cultural consciousness. So that's kind of how we see our wheel here. And we've been doing a lot of work lately. Another thing we realized is that it's so important when one starts doing social and emotional learning in schools, that it doesn't just start with a curriculum out of a box or a binder. Like, it really has to start with grown-ups, and it has to start from the boardroom to the classroom, is what we talk about. So we've tried to really create an environment in which SEL is something that we do with each other as a district and not to schools, if that makes sense. As such, and you can switch to the next slide if you don't mind.
Great, and I did want to let you know, Katie, that we can in fact see you. We didn't have your video box open, just so you're aware that actually if folks have their video open, we can see you. So hello, it's great. Okay, and I'll go to
the lighting in here is kind of weird, and I'm looking at my hair. Oh well. Okay, cool. So the idea of social emotional learning, like I said, we sort of think of it as it's a tier 1, and we don't like to use the term intervention anymore. It's a tier 1 practice. And when we think about the mental health and well-being of students, social and emotional learning becomes the bed from which we can move to help students at higher levels when they need it, tier 2 and tier 3. But we social and emotional learning specialists have the privilege of working very closely with behavior specialists that work more on tier 2 and tier 3. We also interface a lot with licensed professional or licensed mental health professionals, the LMHPs that work at our schools. And we are always talking to each other all the time, so that from the tier 1 practice of social and emotional learning with the counseling that all the kids get, and the core instruction that we call it explicit instruction that students get at school, that becomes the foundation from which we can then serve students with higher needs on the tier 2 and tier 3 level. And I just am so appreciative of the fact that we've tried very hard to break down the silos. I mean, it's always kind of been like, well, there's SEL tier 1 people, and then there's the behavioral specialists, and then there are the, you know, counselors and mental health people, but we all talk a lot. We all interface often with each other. We're really good friends often. It's very collegial. And that, I think, really is a student-centered structure. So that's just what this this tiered triangle represents. And so, yeah, if we're gonna talk about success, we have had a lot of success, actually. We're now in one form or another, and you know, it's a big school district. There's a lot of different expressions of SEL in schools, but every single school, I can say with confidence, has an awareness of social and emotional learning practices, and many schools are truly at the forefront of leading this work. We talk a lot about how SEL, I get upset when social and emotional learning skills are referred to as soft skills. I'm like, they're academic skills, darn it, because we know as educators that students need those relationships and those nurturing, welcoming, inclusive, culturally responsive learning environments in order to retain academic information. So I'm so glad that it is an established tier 1 practice in all of our schools throughout the district. And it's something that we take a lot of pride in. One thing that's kind of new over the past couple years is that we've started looking at teachers who are social and emotional learning leaders. I mean, teachers invented social and emotional learning once humans started learning from each other, because we've known since learning was learning that relationships are crucial to learning. And so teachers are truly the experts in this. And so now we have a micro-credentialing program that invites teachers who are very interested in deepening their social and emotional learning practice and leadership to come together in a cohort and go through a 2-year, 4-semester action research project, essentially. And that has been building, oh, there's a note. Oh, I can talk about that. I'm sorry, I got distracted by the comment. Anyway, it's a cool way to grow and develop and acknowledge the expertise of teachers that are really leading this work throughout our district, and build a lot of buy-in and stakeholders throughout. And principals, knowing that they have social and emotional learning micro-credential, they call it the leadership pathway participants, have been having a lot of pride in that, and that builds a lot of we also vocabulary across departments to have just a way that we can speak all the same language about it, and that creates consistency and buy-in as well. And then we've really been doubling down on this and looking really hard at the data that we produce as a district, and look at that school to prison pipeline and see how we can truly disrupt systems that marginalize students, and focus really in on this concept of educational equity and making sure that we are educating the whole child, every single child. The big catchphrase now is personalized learning, and we are doing that. And I'm glad that that has become I'm glad that it has a name and is kind of at the forefront of the conversation, because that's what social emotional learning truly is meeting every kid where they are. And we know that as educators, how important that is. You can go to the next slide. One example of how we've been trying to build this common vocabulary from the boardroom to the classroom and across all the departments and in so many classrooms, it's so fun to see this happening, is these 3 signature practices. These come from CASEL and have been adopted by several, or many, actually, possibly all of the collaborating district initiative campuses or school districts. And every time we'll be like, okay, now we're going to do our welcoming ritual. Now we're going to have engaging activities and ways to make sure that everyone is learning in the way that's most comfortable for them. And then we're going to have an optimistic closure. And it's funny because people almost laugh about it, because it's like, oh, here we go. Those SEL guys again with their 3 signature practices. But what's cool is that other departments are starting to do it automatically. It's becoming this sort of just muscle memory that agency or departments across the district are doing these 3 signature practices. And these have research to show that this is how both adults and students learn and engage with new content, or deepen knowledge of current content, stuff that they need to know in really effective ways. So this is an example of something that's kind of been spreading like wildfire throughout our district. So there's that. And here are some resources. This is a little bit of a self-horn toot, but I write the blog post every month, and we're late on this month's one. It's already May 2nd. We haven't put up one yet, but it's coming. So that's the blog. I collaborate with our communications specialist on that. And then those are just some resources that we find to be helpful around the district. And really, when it comes to advice, I forgot that advice was a part of it. And I feel like I have no business giving advice to anyone. But one thing that does come up a lot is just, it's so important to take care of the adults, the teachers, just everyone, all the grown-ups need social and emotional learning just as much as the students. And we all need permission to do self-care and to fill our own buckets and fill each other's buckets. And I think that that's just that piece of self-compassion and knowing that being an educator is really, really hard work and deserves, it's just, we need to honor that and really center teachers and center their experience and their expertise. So that, if I was going to give any advice, that's what I would do. So yeah. And I would love to answer questions. I think I said all the things I meant to say.
Yeah. Katie, there was one just comment about highlighting how you got buy-in from principals, administrators, other stakeholders.
Yeah, let me look at that chat. I mean, yeah, that's a great question. You know, one of the big refrains we've had from the beginning is that social and emotional learning is going to look different on every single campus because it's going to be very rooted in that campus's particular culture and needs. And so one of the ways from the very beginning that we have sought to seek collaboration and buy-in, but especially collaboration and just like build a common belief is just acknowledging the fact that it's going to develop differently on every campus and that it's truly something that we need to do with campuses and be really responsive to what those campuses are saying, what needs there are, how we can be the most effectively supportive of each individual campus. Because if we're talking about personalized learning for every kid, that also applies to each individual campus, which are so different. Thanks, Hook 'em Horns Tino. The principals, you know, we have a principals weekly meeting. I'm so proud to say that at the beginning of this past school year, we had a leadership institute for all the principals and assistant principals. And we had a huge restorative practices piece, which is another practice that we've been spreading throughout the district and working really closely with our cultural proficiency and inclusiveness leaders. And there's a whole department now that is focused on restorative practice from a big federal grant. And so we had a community building circles workshop for principal leaders, and everybody came away with such, with just such powerful ideas of how that could affect their campus. So having really good professional development for everybody, I think, is a great way, and just opportunities to engage with the work and also honor the experience and expertise of people that are there is a great way to really spread that collaboration and buy-in. But it's, you know, it's an ongoing process. We've not got it all figured out yet by any stretch.
Great. Thank you for just jumping in there, Katie. I super appreciate it. And if anybody else has questions for Katie, just type them into the chat box. Okay. And I am confident that third time is a charm. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Nancy Turner.
All right, I'm hopeful that everyone can hear me.
We can hear
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, this is wonderful. You know, you love technology until it doesn't work, but this is great. And so I am the Director of Exceptional Student Education with Rockville Schools. We are in comparable size to what all of you have been talking about. We're small, but in the state of South Carolina, we're medium to large. We have 30 schools and about 20,000 total students. However, when I first approached social emotional learning, the mental health issues, part of what I have done is worked with our superintendent and the school board. So one of the things that you have heard already is the communication and the continued approaches. With me in our district, I make sure that every month I'm in front of the school board. And whether I'm telling them where we are with our data-driven responses and the data we have from PBIS for this month, taking a look at longitudinal information, or just taking a look at what we have done this month with ACEs training and resiliency training. We have also partnered with not only local universities, Winthrop, but of course we have this new partnership that we love with the National Center of School Mental Health. And we are now working with our partner to implement the SELF curriculum. It came suddenly. It has been something that we have needed and wanted, so it was perfect timing. It just quickly, long story short, in 18 elementaries, we brought Dr. Scarmelia down. She trained 67 staff that volunteered. It was not a voluntold situation, and they are flying with it. We are guidance counselors, behavior management assistants, special ed teachers, guidance, speech, general ed teachers. They came, they listened, and they were excited. So we have small cohorts at each of our elementaries. They are expected to implement at least 15 minutes a week. I just met today with the elementary principals, and they were excited because at their circle time in the morning, although we're not doing restorative, but in elementary, they start the day with circle time. They are using the SELF curriculum and the activities and lessons. So it's a wonderful curriculum as well as a great partnership. We can go to the next slide. As I mentioned, with some of the successes, it's great success with this partnership and with the grant. The first week, they just jumped into it, and they're getting together and planning. This will go through this school year, which we end in June 1st. We did put in place, and this was primarily due to me continuing to talk to our school board and our superintendent. We had a few teacher assistants in our 18 schools that sort of traveled and tried to put out fires with children in crisis. They were so successful, though, with techniques like de-escalation and avoiding power struggles and teaching this to the teachers of the children who were in crisis, that our school board decided last year for the budget to pay for, out of the general budget, 18 behavior management assistants. Again, teacher assistants, not a high cost, but a very high prevalence of reaching children. So we have a BMA, is how they're referred to. They are assigned to a school. They have formed relationships. They're getting to know the culture of the school, the families, and have made quite a difference. You can go to the next one. So we have been, along with me going to the school board, I'm working very closely with other community networks. There's ACEs task force, and in those task force, and that I don't know that that's necessarily on this frame. We meet monthly, local pediatricians, and I think a few of our presenters today talked about community stakeholders, very important. Meeting with our family, family judges, and NAMI, and a number of community resources, meeting weekly to talk about what can we do not only for the school district and our children, but for the community. 4 years ago, I introduced PBIS. Again, talking to the school board, we always like their approval before we move forward, talking to the principals. And we had some pilot schools to begin. We always began with the data, taking a look at their current data, of course, with infractions and OSS and ISS. And then this last year, keying in, because now we are a district-wide PBIS system, and we are really taking a look at monthly data that is pulled from, we have Power School in the state of South Carolina, and it's pulled from that into another source called Tableau, which will have tabs that reflect monthly total incidents by, race, ethnicity, taking a look at where things are happening, the top 5 issues district-wide in their school. We're even starting impartial bias training because of the data that we have gotten. So one thing leads to another, again, data-driven, but making sure that there's communication and it all builds a foundation of interconnected support. Next frame. So as I mentioned, communication with school board and superintendent. We do contract with our local county mental health. There are wonderful people. There certainly are constraints when it comes to Medicaid. So we are taking a look at other data, threat to self-assessments, threat to other assessments, taking a look at other documented violent and aggressive acts, and working with our county mental health. We're also partnering with, as I mentioned, local universities to look at their Department of Counseling, their Department of Social Work, to see how we can collaborate to bring some of their trainees, interns, and then hopefully later on hires to offer more assistance to our children in crisis. So in a nutshell, we've come a long way. I've just been in Rock Hill for 4 years, but we have come a long way with the school board. Their mission for this school year was all about mental health and all about reaching our children who were dealing with ACEs and were in crisis. So that is very unusual for a school district school board to be so in tune to the issues of mental health with our children.
Thank you so much, Dr. Turner. That was great. So we do have a little bit of time left. We want to encourage anybody that has questions for any of our presenters to enter those into the chat box. Or if you have a particular challenge or success that you would like to share, let us know that also. Questions that we've missed?
We would agree. There's a comment that it seems like a key component to what Nancy is doing is to get buy-in from 2 to 3 key board members. Nancy, do you want to speak at all to how you were able to get that specific buy-in from the board members?
Oh, absolutely. First and foremost, making sure that I was presenting on the most current data, talking about how we were rolling the initiatives out, and then also talking about the response of our teachers and of our administrators. The administrators do come to our school board meeting as well, and they were also supporting all the initiatives, and then really looking at the data. We also have work sessions with our school board. So bottom line is not only for me to be present, but for me to be communicating in a way that our board understands. So because they have come from all kinds of different areas, there was a lot of clarification and defining, and then talking about what does this mean and what does the outlook, what will that be? What should it look like in a year, 3 years, 5 years? and really just being there to answer questions. So I would say communication, making yourself visible, and having data-driven information that is in plain language that everyone understands.
Thank you. Go ahead.
One of the comments in the chat box was about high school and in even middle school social emotional learning resources. And we hear this a lot at our national center, that districts or schools have things in place for their elementary students but are struggling to find resources for middle and high school students. I will point you, just as a resource, if you haven't already identified it, the middle and high school program guide from Castle has done a really comprehensive review, not only of elementary programs, but in that particular guide of middle and high social emotional learning resources. And I'm wondering if any of our presenters from today or anybody else on the line has examples of how social emotional learning has been integrated for their older students, for their middle and high school students.
Can y'all hear me?
We
Yes,
can hear
we
you.
can.
We can.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually driving now. Is that so?
That's okay. We can hear you just fine. Just be safe.
Okay, yes, we'll be. I'm on hands free. You know, it's the law. But so that has been such a challenge. The secondary social and emotional learning has been a challenge, and one of the ways, well, we have used up through 8th grade, we've used Second Step, which is a Castle endorsed resource and is research based. And then there's also School Connect for high school, which has been used in a lot of dedicated MAPS classes, we call them, and advisories. And also some AVID classes have used School Connect. And it's a good curriculum, but one of the best things that we've found that schools have done just really organically is have groups of teachers start to write social and emotional learning lessons on their own and build a library of lessons that respond directly to student stated need and also teacher perceived need from their individual advisories and interactions with students. And that's been another cool way to create sort of this collaborative sense of ownership of SEL work. And explicit instruction is inviting teachers and their students to really bring the topics and create the lessons. And the specialists, I mean, what's cool about having a lot of specialists like me is that we can work. I have 9 campuses that I work with, and I work with middle and high schools. And I've had the great opportunity to work with a lot of teachers directly in creating engaging explicit instruction and SEL lessons. And we'll use, a lot of times we'll use Castle structures from Second Step and School Connect, but that kind of free reign to create their own lessons and have coaching and guidance from a specialist that can help, you know, build really cool, I mean, they build the cool lessons, but we can help kind of guide the structure of it and based on the need and the time constraints and all of that. It's been a really neat thing to see happen, and it's been very organic, which is cool.
That sounds great.
I was going to say that's one area that we are looking forward to having more of a secondary SEL curriculum, more with activities and lessons. Through our PBIS, we are, of course, working with our adults to continue a consistent positive language. I'm seeing an improvement in that, an improvement in their approach, and taking a look at teaching to strengths. So I think that through that, our next step certainly would be to take a look at our secondary social emotional learning curriculum.
Great, thanks, Katie and Nancy. So another comment that is piggybacking on what was just shared is that what's happening in Northern California, that it's crucial to get youth buy-in and input, especially for dedicated social emotional learning lessons, and that it's important for teachers to write content, as is happening in Austin. But DIW, or dead in the water, if you think that we're pulling them away from crucial prep times that they need as well. So it is a fine balance, and making sure that our students are at the table as we're thinking not only about the content, but also how to integrate it within the curriculum in a way that doesn't pull them away from what they may be feeling most concerned about in terms of their academic and I agreed with Katie as she said, we don't want to call these non-academic or soft skills, right? But we do know that students may be concerned about particular academic subjects, and so we need to have them at the table. We do have some comments from Nikki Oliver mentioned we have established an integrated positive behavior support model, including trauma-informed PBIS, SEL, equitable discipline, and restorative practices to prevent, prepare, respond, and restore. Sounds like a fabulous framework, Nikki, and maybe one that we can hear more about as we continue to work together. And then Pat Sanborn from Nevada talked about how she loves the way that Pennsylvania has aligned social emotional learning to employability skills, and wondered if there's any data that's been collected to share with academic advocates, for example, school boards, etc. And so I see that there's a link. Nikki, thank you so much. I'm assuming this link is related to the first comment. So thank you for sharing that. And I know that there are just a few minutes left, and some reminders here from Heather and from Jessica to ensure that you provide feedback on the session before signing off. So there is a bit.ly link to do that, and that if the bit.ly link is not working, there's another link for Stanford University Qualtrics. So go to either one of those. But are there any more questions or comments? So, and while we're doing that, did anybody from Pennsylvania want to respond to the data question around the connection with employability skills? Not sure if Pat Emery is still there to speak to that.
Yes, we are.
Did you want to take a moment to speak to whether there is data in terms of that alignment with employability skills that you've been able to generate and share with academic advocates? Pat, should we take the silence as maybe we're still working on that?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. But it sounds like people really appreciated the alignment with the employability skills, so that's great. So not only did we think that Austin would be a great exemplar because they've been doing social emotional learning work so well, but we also happen to be completely excited about Austin at this moment in time because, as many of you know, and if you don't know, we want to let you know that we are hosting our national conference on school mental health this year in Austin, Texas. So shout out to Austin. And and so for those of you who have not attended our conference before but are interested and engaged in school mental health, we have about 1,500 people from across the country come each year. We move about the country. And so again, this year we'll be in Austin, and it's 3 great days of learning about school mental health and state-of-the-art efforts and what's happening in states and districts and school buildings related to supporting student mental health. And increasingly, we're seeing submissions related to the adults in the building, as we mentioned today. So more presentations this year on teacher well-being as well. And so for those of you who are interested, we'll go ahead and post the link to our conference in the chat box, but it's being held November 7th to the 9th in Austin, Texas, and you can find out more at schoolmentalhealth.org. And it's good to hear from Molly Lopez, who heads the South-Southwest Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, which is located in Austin, that she is excited to have everyone visit. So thank you, Pat, for the information. Pat saying that that apparently when dates are plugged in for the conference, that it's saying that the hotel is already full. I can't imagine that to be the case. So my guess is it's another example of technology not working in our favor. So, but I appreciate the heads up, and we will reach out and make sure that for the national conference that technology glitch is cleared up so that people can go ahead and book. And I'm impressed that people are already booking their hotel. That's great. So anybody else have any questions or anything they want to share with respect to their Tier 1 services or the efforts for the National School Mental Health Curriculum and Collaborative?
I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to talk about this, and thanks for the good work that you're doing, and that I just love this such important collaboration. It's so student-centered, so thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you.
Also,
go ahead.
I also wanted to thank you for the opportunity not only to look at it through the district perspective, but to hear about what's going on through the state, the different states, and through the state's perspective. So this has been wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all of our presenters. And it wasn't by accident that we tried to have perspectives from the national level through the U.S. Department of Education and their partners, as well as from state and districts, because we know that we need to be really hearing from folks across all levels to get a comprehensive look as to what's going on in comprehensive school mental health. So thank you so much to everybody for your time today. Thank you again to the Mental Health Technology Transfer Center National Coordinating Office at Stanford for their team hosting and pulling this together. And thanks for everyone for joining us. The link for the evaluation is on your screen and in the chat box. And we ask that everybody take a moment to provide us that information. We look forward to also seeing you all again for the virtual learning session on early intervention and treatment, tiers 2 and 3 on Thursday, June 6th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We will see you then. If you have anything to share for that virtual learning session, please reach out and let us know. Take care and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you,
Thanks
too.
so much. I'll take care. Bye.